Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for our three-day Precious Metals and Critical Minerals Conference. The first presentation of the conference is from Valkea Resources. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides, and you can view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Thomas Credlin. He's the president, and Liz Monger, vice president of communications for Valkea Resources, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol OZBKF and on the TSXV under the symbol OZ. Welcome back, Thomas and Liz.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. And it's good to be the first person out. I think you've got 46 companies, so it's good to be up front. So thank you. I'm going to be talking about our exploration programs in Finland. I've been with the company for 3 weeks, but prior to my joining Valkea, I was with a company called Rupert Resources, who made a 4 million ounce discovery called Ikkari in 2020. And I'm very pleased to join Valkea. So the front page, you can see some drilling that we did last winter. You can see the terrain is very, very flat, very accessible, and that's a good advantage to have. So moving through the next page, the disclaimer for you to read at your leisure, and into the main body of the presentation. So why Valkea? We're basically focused entirely in central Lapland and northern Finland. It's probably the destination in sort of Europe really for gold and base metals exploration. There've been several large discoveries made in the last decade or so, both for base metals and gold. But our focus primarily is on gold exploration and making gold discoveries. We have a very good board and management team. I've joined from Rupert Resources, obviously got a track record of discovery, but also in the company we have board members that have had other successes in Finland. And we have, when I joined 3 weeks ago, I was joined by Dr. Charlie Seabrook, who is the geologist credited with the discovery of Ikkari in northern Finland. So the thing that's not known maybe so well about Valkea is that in addition to its kind of flagship on a Valkea West property, it has a huge land package in central Lapland. So 5 highly prospective properties, 100% owned, which remain relatively underexplored. So a bit about Finland. Finland has a long and storied history, but mostly for base metals. Mining was really undertaken by the state-owned company OTCQB for up until Finland joined the European Union in the late 90s. So really the focus up until then was on base metals and in this sort of central district in Finland, which were the big company making type discoveries which were owned by the state. Latterly, exploration has occurred in central Lapland up in the north of Finland. And there's been a number of big discoveries up here. Agnico Eagle have their 7 million ounce Kittilä mine, which has been in production since 2009. Anglo American have the major Sakatti discovery, which was made in 2009. And there are Boliden at Kevitsa, a big 10 million ton a year mill and mine. And Ikkari is the kind of new entrant, and that was owned by Rupert Resources, and that was a grassroots discovery that was made in 2020. So there is kind of a lot of activity. You also have Kinross and B2 Gold active in the area as well. So those companies are looking for these sort of larger tier one, what we call tier 1 or tier 2 type discoveries. So that's a kind of at least 2.5 million ounces potential for 250,000 ounces of production a year. That's the kind of minimum that those types of companies are looking for. So moving on to sort of central Lapland. So again, within central Lapland there are a number of kind of major regional structures, and I think the important thing to note from this slide is that Valkea's 5 core properties are located along these major regional structures. So you only need a kilometre of structure to make a major discovery. So Valkea probably within their portfolio has about 35 35 kilometers of regional structure in these 5 properties. The focus really for recent times has been the Parna property, host to the Valkea West and East discoveries, and so we'll talk a bit more about that later on. But I just want to sort of direct you to this, just the kind of size of the Valkea property package, and also critically, we're located 25 kilometers northwest of the Kittila mine, Europe's biggest gold mine, around about sort of 7 million ounce endowment, and I think now rated to produce around about 250,000 ounces a year by Agnico Eagle. So I think when I first came to Finland in 2016, there really was only the Agnico Eagle mine, but obviously now you have Rupert's Ikkari discovery in the southern part of the Central Lapland's greenstone belt. So I think there's more of a track record. There's probably two mines in this region by the early 2030s, and I think it's obviously a kind of exciting, important part of the world to be looking for gold mines. So a bit more about the other mines in the region. The Kittila mine was discovered by the Geological Survey of Finland in 1986. So it wasn't really a kind of a grassroots discovery in the sense of it was made by a public listed company. It was discovered by the state in the mid 80s, and the same with the Kevitsa mine, which is now in production and owned by Boliden. So the more recent discoveries made from grassroots exploration were Ikkari, owned by Rupert Resources, which was discovered in 2020, and Anglo-American Sakatti project, which is discovered in 2029, which is now, both these projects are now at sort of the pre-feasibility stage. A sort of theme on Finland, I think, really is that whilst there's been some new discoveries made, and I think actually sort of latterly post sort of COVID and various other things, I think you've seen less exploration investment in the grassroots stage of exploration, which is the kind of critical, which is the thing that you need to sort of, again, there's obviously a lead time between doing that grassroots exploration and making discoveries, but I think there's been a sort of tapering off of grassroots exploration in Finland over the last 5 years since Rupert discovered Ikkari. A lot of that is because the people who made the discovery, so Anglo-American and Rupert, so once they'd made their discovery, they refocused all their drilling into sort of development drilling rather than grassroots exploration. And obviously, whilst we're seeing these incredible gold prices now, I think for a period of the last 3 years, you've seen sort of stagnation in the gold price and probably an underinvestment in that sort of key part of the sort of discovery cycle. So one of the goals for Valkea is to really sort of kickstart some more of that sort of generative work. We have a very good advanced property, but again, we want to be working on maybe up to 20, 30 targets with a focus on drilling out the 5 best ones. So there's challenges to operating in Finland. So although you have very good right of tenure, you have very good government historical data sets provided by the GTK. There is no exposure in any of this ground. So everything is covered by 5 to 30 meters of glacial till. So there are really no shortcuts you can use to make a discovery. So again, you have to be using, the government data sets are a very good starting point, but you probably want to shoot some new geophysics and then do some use a sort of a geochemical sampling method to sort of winnow down your sort of your targets. So obviously, if there's 5 to 30 meters of glacial till, you need to be using a reconnaissance drill method. So again, there are no shortcuts to doing exploration in Finland, which is I guess why there haven't been the number of discoveries made in the last 5 years. But if you've done it before, there is a well tried and tested method to use if you've got the right kind of ground, which Valkea has. So I think one of the things, when I joined Valkea was that you had you weren't starting from scratch. It wasn't all grassroots exploration. You have a number of properties that are more the more advanced stage, and probably on Valkea West, which we'll talk about, is the best of these targets. But within the portfolio, you have a number of other target areas which all have the potential to become more advanced targets in their own right. They're also very large target areas. So although we're talking about sort of maybe 6 or 7 targets in this inventory, they probably actually represent more like 20. So when you come to sort of zero in on them and do the work, there's probably more targets to be generated based on existing data and GTK stuff that's been done in joint ventures as well. So the goal for the next 12 months is to build out this pyramid, and I guess you always want to start with a wide base, have more in this reconnaissance stage and be pushing forward. So you're not just targeting the same things all the time. So where we were successful at Rupert in my previous job was that we didn't get too bogged down in one target. We turned over a lot of ground, a lot of targets. So each one of these targets would initially get 2,000 meters of drilling. If we still felt it had potential to become one of these bigger tier 1, tier 2 targets, it would get more drilling, and so on and so on. So there is a sort of feedback loop, there's a cycle, and there's a process that you need to apply to push some of this ground forward and some of these targets forward. A bit more about the management team. Everyone in this team has sort of either has had experience with discoveries or experience in Finland. So I think one of the things that was sort of maybe lacking a little bit with Rupert in the beginning was a presence in Canada and maybe some experience on the sort of capital market side. But I think there's a very good presence for Valkea in Canada, and sort of I guess a sort of core team of people that have done this before. My particular experiences in Finland, and then I guess that's really where I'll be leading on that as I move forward with the company. Also on the board, you have a number of key executives. I think I would highlight on here George Salamis, who's obviously he's been with several companies since, but his probably highest profile success in the beginning was developing the Kittila mine, the Kittila property prior to its sale to Agnico Eagle when it was with Ridder-Hitton Resources. He's subsequently been involved in several other companies. Also, like to direct you to Mark Bennett, who's made several discoveries with his company S2 Resources in Western Australia, and he was the person that put the land package together for S2 Resources, which was then vended into Valkea. Another new member of the board is Mark Turcott, who joins from Mag Silver. That's the company that's just been sold to Pan American for 2.1 billion. So again, we've got a good breadth of experience here with capital markets, mine finding, and M&A. So that's good. I also direct you to Michael Gentili, who's a strategic advisor for us. He participated in a recent equity financing, and obviously he has a portfolio of very successful companies in all stages of development in mining. And Dr. Charlie Seabrook, who joined with me 3 weeks ago, who was the exploration geologist accredited with the discovery of Ickery. Cap structure, I think, one of the things that I looked at before joining was the cap structure. Valkea is very tightly held. We have a core group of shareholders who've been very supportive in recent financings. S2 remain a cornerstone strategic shareholder. And so that's it's very tightly held. I think also you think about, well, what could the cap structure look like post-discovery? I think at the point Rupert made the Ickery discovery, we had about 150 million shares out, but also we had Agnico as a strategic investor, a sort of 9.9 strategic investor with a route to 15%. So I like the fact that the Valkea has a clean capital structure, has full flexibility to implement its plans, and then make its own decision on how it would like to move the company forward. So talking a bit more about the sort of the Valkea property portfolio, our focus really is on the Palmer property, located about 25 kilometers away from the Kittler mine. This was discovered. Initial work here was done in 2019, when S2 ran an extensive soil sampling program across the property, across this major shear structure that runs through the east part of the license. So again, it's based on good government geophysics. They did the geochemical sampling, which is then followed up with this base of till reconnaissance drilling, which goes through the glacial till to the base rock, the bedrock, and then that identified this very good anomaly, which became Valkea West. So that target has now had about 18,000 meters of drilling on it, and it will demand some more drilling at some point. But we're right in the, we're 25 k's from Kittler. There's a big a big land package, and probably the bit that we've drilled is only 1.3 kilometers, but it's obviously it's probably a 10k of strike of the structure along the license. Again, this just shows how the target was discovered. So you had a very good geochemical anomaly, which was followed up with drilling. And again, you've got a huge amount of space between the main Valkea West and Valkea East sort of lineaments, which obviously doesn't have much drilling at this point. So again, you can only orientate your drilling based on a geochemical signature, but obviously that only shows you the structure that comes to sort of 10 meters of surface. So a lot of this, there's a big area which needs to be considered when you're thinking about other drilling targets. And that, so the next step for Valkea is to take all the information we have from the existing drilling and redo our regional structural interpretations, which will then give us the basis to go forward and do more drilling. So I guess food for thought in terms of how good is Valkea West. Well, I think one of the challenges that Valkea and S2 have had was that the initial anomaly that was seen at Valkea West is very similar to the 7 million ounce Kittler mine. So I think they were very successful early on, and so I think that's one of the reasons why the drilling has been really only on this 1.5 kilometer structure. But you can sort of see, I mean, my learning from Ikari and from Rupert was that all of these other anomalies probably do deserve more. I'll just point some of these things out. All of these other anomalies, these base of till lines are actually very sparsely. A very sparse spacing. So if you think that the Ikari mine probably only had a strike of 800 meters, and probably of that the base of till anomaly was only 200 meters initially. So again, a lot of these other target areas probably need infill base of till before you can diamond drill them. But the base anomaly at Valkea West is very strong. So again, the drilling at Valkea probably stands out with anything that you've seen in the region. So some very good initial hits, wide mineralization with a high grade component. So again, when you're thinking about how these things can become resources, you're looking for these wide widths with a higher grade component as well. So Valkea West has all of those components. And again, as we think about further drilling, to identify those narrower, higher grade zones, you need to do probably tighter drilling, but also there's other targets to step out and drill. And so again, when we think about planning our next drill programs, that's there'll be probably some tighter drilling on this target, but also stepping out and trying to expand the envelope elsewhere. We undertook a small drilling program in the fall. so around about 2,000 meters. Again, so it confirmed some of these high grade zones. It expanded the envelope slightly, and so the next drilling will probably drill some of those open areas, both down dip, along strike, and at depth. So that's probably the next drilling that needs to be done on this target. Again, just showing that you've got two coherent zones of mineralization in this drilling. Decent widths, some high grade. All of those things are important when you're thinking about putting a resource together. But in order to model a resource, there will need to be some sort of tighter drilling, some drilling on narrower centers done, and also looking to extend that mineralized envelope. We've got another 5 or so minutes, but I'll just talk you through some of the other properties. The Rover property up to the north of Parna is another part of the portfolio. Again, it's had very little work done on it, but a very strong geochemical anomaly, and also it covers around about 17 kilometers of structure through in the northern part of the central Lapland greenstone belt. So again, it's a very large land package. Probably needs some more some earlier stage geophysics and more base of till, but it's a very good, highly prospective property. Also in the portfolio is the Putampira license, which lies along the Circa Shear, which is host to Rupert's Ikari project, as well as 2 or 3 other discoveries made by B2 Gold and Orion. So again, that's in the exploration permitting stage, so it's more of an advanced target. So again, that's something that could be explored in the next 12 months. Again, it's in a very interesting part of the district, and I think this is probably a priority target as we look forward in the next 12 months. And then Palvonin, again, this is ground that has come back to us after sort of a 4-year period with Kinross. Remember that Kinross is now a $40 billion company or so they are looking for sort of deposits which are, I guess, probably needs to be 10 million ounces to kind of interest Kinross these days. But look, there's over $5 million Canadian of investment in this ground. There's a lot of good work to look at, and I think when we think about our building our proprietary geological model, this is going to be a great asset to us. And I think that there's some work here which demands a further look. And so again, we're not starting from grassroots, from moose pasture. We're looking at sort of more advanced exploration targets, and this again is something that we can work on straight away. So just to summarize, we have 5 core properties. We now have a proven team in place, and we have a proven methodology we can use in Finland. We've switched to a more regional approach to the Valkea portfolio, targeting these tier 1 or tier 2 size gold deposits. So look at this, a minimum of 2.5 million ounces, and we'll be applying the same approach that's been used elsewhere in the district by Rupert and others. So again, it's very systematic. We're only looking for big things, and again, we're sort of reviewing our data portfolio and data sets now. We'll be developing our sort of proprietary regional geological model and building out our technical team. But look, you don't discover anything unless you're drilling, and so our plan really is to sort of probably put together a sort of a 5,000 point basic till program with a view to sort of launching a minimum of 10,000 meters of drilling kind of later in the year. So with that, that's all for me. I'll now hand over to Liz for some Q&A.
Thanks, Thomas. Great presentation. We've got a couple questions here from the audience. Let's start with a personal one. What attracted you personally to join Valkea at this stage of the company's evolution?
Well, I was looking for a vehicle where I could make a difference. I mean, I'd been sort of looking at sort of maybe doing something on my own and picking up ground from the government. But actually, when I looked at the Valkea portfolio, I thought actually this is the best. This is probably the best, some of the best underexplored ground in the region. So it's the 3rd biggest landholder in central Lapland. I sort of thought I had, I'd obviously learned some things with Rupert over the years. I thought this is the place to apply that methodology and to bring that approach onto some great ground. But fundamentally, look, you're not going to discover anything unless you've got the right ground, and that's if I can explain one thing, I mean it's this 35 kilometers of regional structure, and again, there's a few things we learned from Rupert about how to explore, but it's to be very focused on making big discoveries and again, not sort of getting too stuck on smaller things, but keep looking for the bigger discovery. So yeah, but fundamentally it's the grounds, and then I think also you can't. I think Chris Donaldson, the exec chair, and has done a very good job with the cap structure. He's brought some great investors onto the register, and again, so I think if we were to make a discovery in the next couple of years, then the shareholders would have very good sort of talk, and they would benefit fully from any discovery that we make. But those are the two things: property, capital structure, and I guess my experience in the region.
Great, thanks, Thomas. We've got a couple questions here around capital. Maybe we'll just focus on how will you prioritize capital and time across the 5 core properties over the next 24 to 36 months? You've touched on this a bit, but maybe if you could just sort of specifically address that would be great.
So I think really what I think Arna Valkea West and the flagship project definitely deserves more drilling, but it's sort of, again, I think the one thing that's sort of that I guess that hasn't been, there's more of an opportunity is to bring some of those other target areas forward that haven't really had so much work done. I think that Valkea has been a bit of a victim of its own success in some ways. That you have had this flagship target, and so maybe some of the other stuff hasn't been brought forward. So in terms of prioritizing, I will look to build out that technical team. There's a lot of information in the company, and in terms of the data sets from the joint venture with Kinross and also drilling that's been done. So I think you've got to keep pushing targets forward. So in terms of, I think absolutely Parna is the flagship and the priority, and there's work to do there immediately. Otherwise, I think Put-and-Pera is probably in terms of what's known at the moment is probably the most prospective of the other 5 properties. But again, you have a lot of that data needs to be reevaluated, and so in the shorter term, in the next kind of quarter, 2-3 months, as we build out the team, I want to be talking a bit more about these other properties and evaluating them fully.
Okay, great, thanks. I think we probably just have time for one more question here. And if we haven't answered your questions, we can contact you by email, and happy to respond then. So for a final question, what do you think the market is still underappreciating about Valkea today? And if someone is new to Valkea, what's the simple investment thesis for why they should follow the story from here?
Well, I think it's been I think as we outline our plans for the rest of the year, and I think the market's maybe looking for sort of nearer term catalysts, but this is going to be a 12 to 18 month journey. Obviously I've been with the company 3 weeks, but the more work I do on the ground, the more excited I get. So I think in the shorter term, expect us to really lay out the sort of prospectivity of these properties, and our plan for the next 12 months exploration. So I think there's maybe Valkea has been overlooked. Maybe Finland's been slightly overlooked. I think again there's been sort of speculation that there would have been some corporate activity there by now. So again, that's another potential. I think again that will probably shine a bit more of a light on Finland. But we're going to get our head down and put this plan together, and then really up our activity levels and hit this hard in the second half of the year. But there's a lot we can showcase in the company, and we'll be doing that as we roll into the PDAC conference in the next month, and then as we sort of develop our plans, in the first half of this year.
Well, that's great. It's going to be an exciting year ahead, I think, Thomas. I think we are out of time. So thanks, everyone, for joining us today. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to info@valkea.ca.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.